God is running after us this morning. Not like the religious leaders of Christ's day who talked a really, really good talk, but they did not walk one single step. Not like the religious leaders of Christ who, instead of giving you God's perfect love to commune on, they piled up laws and rules to weigh you down. Without lifting a single finger to help you. Not like the religious leaders who have all these ornate, fancy rituals and traditions, who love to sit at the head table and receive honorary degrees and be called by fancy religious names and titles. Not to be like the hypocrites. No, God is calling us to be humble and brave and to trust God's Spirit will guide us without showing us every single step of the way. That's the definition of faith, is it not? God is calling us to serve, as American poet Edgar Guest wrote, "I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one would walk with me than merely show me the way. The eye's a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but examples always clear. And the best of all the preachers are the men and women who live their creeds. For to see good put in action, to see good put in action is what everybody needs." God is calling me to show you why resiliency in our faith or growing in our giving, as American psychologist Maslow said, one can choose to go back towards safety or forward toward growth. Growth must be chosen again and again. Fear must be overcome again and again. Why grow in your giving? Because Calvin is humble enough to have discerned God's will for us is to officially and publicly come out as open and inclusive and affirming, knowing fully well that especially in this town, that's not a popular stance to take. Bruce said to me recently, as I've shared with you, that Calvin has been open, inclusive, and affirming for an entire century, the entirety of this century. Yeah, for the last 23 years. That is deep and profound. We were just sort of in the closet about it. Well, last week after worship, Linda Anderson dug deeper and more profoundly. And she said to me, "David, Calvin's always been that way." And I say that as I see your heads nodding in affirmation. Why grow in your giving? Because we know fully well that that we may lose a few folks. We know fully well that our being open, inclusive, and affirming may turn a few away in the future. both of which we lament. It hurts. But to be indifferent is to always take the place of the oppressor, to take the side of the oppressor, never the oppressed. Or to put it another way, if an elephant has its foot on the tail, as the Bishop Desmond Tutu says, and you say that you're neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Why grow in your giving? Because we know fully well that when we're going to give much more to the marginalized, to the outcast, to the misfit than we'll ever get in return. Because we know that serving them, by serving them, we're joining them. Because we know that by doing what God is clearly calling us to do, we'll becoming the target of ridicule and shame. Because we know we're becoming more and more and more like Christ himself, who in these passages is entering Jerusalem and on his way to Golgotha. Growing in your giving, because moving back is not how Christ rose on that first glorious Easter morn. Jesus said, "For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." Why grow in your giving? Because the saddest secret is that in most churches, the number of people who sit in the pews each week, year after year, have never developed a true relationship with God. And in most churches, they're the ones who make the rules. They look good. They are respectably religious. But they are spiritually inept at best and spiritually dead at worst. Friends, why grow forward and not back? Because Calvin loves the Lord, because God's mercy has never failed us, because God has led us through the fire and the darkest night. Because here, now, today, God is running after us. Because Calvin is where we sing and live in the goodness of God. Because there are people out there who need the healing haven that we love and that we call Calvin. Amen? Amen.